Good night. Welcome back to Cut Deep. It's Season 3, Episode 5. The concept of Cut Deep was developed with a focus on encouraging the wider public to think more in depth on issues that plague us, encouraging persons to have a voice and to use that voice to invoke change. Cut Deep is an interactive platform cutting through the noise and political rhetoric. It is raw, uncut, challenging you to think critically. What do the issues mean for us? What part do we play? It is a platform that will move the Virgin Islands toward unified, integrated success. I want to welcome back Blossoms Florist and McKelly's Beauty Salon as our support sponsors for Cut Deep. I welcome Basics to our roster of sponsors for Season 3. I also want to highlight and thank those of you who support this platform from behind the scenes. You know who you are, and I want to say that I truly appreciate you. I promised you a two-part show on civic responsibility and duty, and I'm keeping that promise. I'm delighted to have my friend Sarah Penney on with me tonight, and we're going to have this follow-through conversation. We will take a short break and come right back with our guest and the show for tonight.
Our floral experts use their creative flair to design beautiful and exotic bouquets. We are the on-island wedding experts, and for boating enthusiasts, we can help you to add a touch of floral elegance, life, and color to your yacht, mega yacht, both locally and internationally. We've even worked with celebrities. At Blossoms, we continue to deliver smiles and watch our customers bloom.
Gentlemen, aspiring gentlemen, and our partners that hold us down. It's Season 2 of The Art of a Distinguished Gentleman, taking you on the most inspiring journey with the best and brightest distinguished gentlemen of the BVI. Raw, real-life lessons that translate to grounded, community-minded, well-rounded men like you've never seen them before. Governor Augustus J.U. Jaspert, Jovan Klein, Neil Klein, and so much more. Turning modern-day men into 21st century distinguished gentlemen with yours truly, Ron Grant, a 284 Media production.
Welcome back. We're on Season 3, Episode 5 of Cut Deep. Thank you to our sponsors, Blossoms Florist, McKelly's Beauty Salon, Basics, and Mr. Nice Guy. I know that you tune in every week for a fiery hot show. However, the main focus of Cut Deep is to educate in an effort to rewire our thinking so that we can move the BVI forward. In saying that, I want to welcome Miss Sarah Penney as my guest for the next hour or so, and we're going to continue the conversation on civic responsibility and duty. Sarah, I am so happy.
I know.
You brought such great energy. I love you so much. I'm so happy to have you on the set of Cut Deep with me. And so I'm just going to ask you to introduce yourself to our listening audience.
Good night, everybody. I am Sarah Penney, as Cindy so kindly presented. I have the privilege to be serving as Deputy Director for the BVI's local not-for-profit organization, Green VI. I do a lot of work to try to harmonize the relationship between humankind and the environment. Some others in my community also know me as a dancer, do quite a lot in the performing arts. My heart space sits there, and I absolutely love all the teaching that I get to do in our community. I am a passionate and proud BVI lander. I have spent my life being raised by an incredible mother who is probably the reason I'm here today to speak about civic duty. It has been a part of my life since day one. And Mommy, thank you. I hope you're watching, and I hope I do you proud. Yeah.
Sarah, thank you. Like me, civic responsibility and civic duty are things that are important to you. We've had many conversations about it. So what I want you to do is to just tell us what civic responsibility is and civic duty, and what they really mean for you.
Yeah. I mean, these conversations we've had for a long time, Cindy, and with so many others, because we actually, sometimes I don't think we see how many people in our community act civically. And I think it's because it always gets wrapped up in politics.
Yes.
And the reality is this community, most of us were raised up in, you have people that just take the initiative, right? They take the initiative to try to keep the fabric of our community strong, whether that's with helping a neighbor or letting your godchild come and stay with you, or helping somebody with their homework, or doing something no one asked you to do because you, as a thinking person, acknowledged that it was important for your community. I spent the time on the other side of this doing degrees in international government because I do believe that government and what politics is meant to be is a beautiful thing.
We've learned something new about Sarah tonight.
I do believe it's a beautiful thing. I had a lot of intentions of working for the United Nations. That was the trajectory I was on in my youth. And then I came home, and I didn't come home because I had to. I came home because I wanted to. And I came home because I think this is where you and I, interestingly, didn't know each other for a long time.
Yes.
Gravitated to one another because you see the fact that we're not only responsible to make our nation the best it can be, but it's also a phenomenal opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal opportunity. So I'm not sure that I've spoken to all your parts of your question, but in terms of what the belief is it's an opportunity. I think civic duty and civic responsibility is an opportunity for an individual to be a part of something greater than themselves and to do something actively to change and evolve what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty
works.
good. Okay. So how do we apply civic duty and responsibility to improve this territory?
Yeah.
We're going to probably hit fast.
How do we apply it? We get active. We become less complacent. Right now, it doesn't have to do just with politics. Again, like that's where we have to get beyond, is that civic duty is a civic responsibility to take care of my brother. We're a faithful country. We're a faithful nation, faithful territory. And we have to act on that more. That I don't just look after somebody in my congregation. I look after everybody that's in my village. And we are a nation of villages too that is getting lost more and more.
Yes.
And that you do what you can well. So if you're someone that's able to look after only yourself and your family, but you can do that to your best, then do that to your best. If you're someone that has capacity or bandwidth to do a bit more beyond just your nuclear family, then do that. But keep in mind that we're interconnected. I had this great conversation with my friend and dear one, Charlotte, who talked about Darwin. A lot of us know about Darwin. And there's this whole thing that, Darwin is his theory of the survival of the fittest. And that actually isn't the fundamental theory Darwin put out there. He said that humans are a successful species because we understand how to collaborate. And I think that's why there's often a lot of people that are in the arts are also involved in politics. Because for arts to be successful, you collaborate. It takes lots of pieces, and it's the same in a democracy, that you have to collaborate and have respect for one another, a willingness to challenge something, respect for that challenge, and then how do you create something beautiful out of it? So if we can reflect a bit more on the collaborative part of civic duty, then I think we're going to get somewhere faster.
So much faster.
Yeah.
Okay. What I learned from Dr. Richards last week, and I probably know this because it wasn't there when I was coming up, that civic duty or civics is not a part of the school curriculum, neither primary or junior high or high school. If you can elaborate on the need for that from very young, and how that enhances us as a people and as a territory. Well, and how it helps us to play on the bigger
I'm so happy that this question is happening, and this is like our conversation we've had for a long time, but it's completely unfair to expect people to be born knowing how to be a citizen. It's not some like thing that we are born knowing.
Correct.
And there's so much that we teach in schools that's essential. There's also so much we used to teach that we don't teach anymore. I don't mean to be like as simple as home economics.
Yes.
these are important things. I mean, I don't know, you're not born knowing how to like balance a checkbook or, manage your finances or, understand and consider what a pension is or so many parts of our society that we take for granted. And it's the same with citizenship. You need someone to give you at least a basic understanding. They don't need to tell you how to vote. They don't need to tell you to run for office. They don't need to tell you to pay your taxes. They don't need to tell you to do it, but they need to give you the framework
the tools.
And and explain it. I mean, I don't know if somehow we thought just because everything is on the internet that that's the answer.
Everything wasn't on the internet when I was growing up, and that still wasn't there. But I can tell you, I went to the Seventh Adventist school, and we didn't do civics, but a lot of things that they taught me, if I think about it, it's, it speaks to civic duty and responsibility and how you care for others around you in your community and just everything. So, it's stewardship. And I think a lot of our schools are very good at teaching that. I mean, I think I had that at St. George's, and then I'm always going to give credit to my mother, and I don't know if it's because she was like raised, grew up in the 60s, and it was this like real intense time across the world for change and trying to be empowered. But if we don't teach it in our schools, it is really unfair to expect a generation to know how to act. I think there was a time early on in our territories, democracy, constitution, everything, where we were small enough that you really could lead by example. Yeah. And you could see your elders of that generation and how they acted, but we're not that small. And we're moving too fast through hustling to make money and, do what somehow we think we're meant to be doing as individuals, to exist on social media platforms and travel and everything. And we don't necessarily follow leadership like demonstration. And it has to start in schools. I mean, Do you think there's a fall away though in terms of leadership, like what we?
Oh, you're bringing me in, Cindy.
let me redraft so I don't put you on the hot seat.
That's fine.
But what did you say before you sat here that this set is it's a hot
it's
set?
Hot, yes. I think for anyone that Cindy invites to come, say yes, only because you're going to learn things about yourself in the moment. Make sure that you ask for a filter. Even though you're not going to get one.
Correct. Do you think that right now, like in this time, that we have the right examples of leadership for our young people to look up to? And that's not just inside of, say, government or just in the schools and just around them. Just that little, in their space, when they look out, what do they see?
Well, I mean, their brains are different than ours. I don't know if you've seen the science about the fact that since the advent of the internet, the structure of brains and how they process has been changing. And now we have really a different way of thinking. I don't ever like to say the millennials, you know what I mean? But a generation that has no memory of life before the internet is a different thing. I struggle at times to connect with my students, my nieces, my family members, who they process information differently. I think we can all do better though. Yeah. I think that there's still, we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard whenever we're teachers or elected leadership, clergy, anyone that has the privilege of being in a position of example setting or mentorship. You have to do the work.
Yeah. I totally agree. I know their minds are wired differently because I got 3 little ones, which whom you're very familiar with. I have 3 little ones, and in terms of electronics and the internet and what's going on, they do try to school me a bit. Sometimes I can school them, and I feel like I got one over on them. Yeah. But I think there's outside of that. I think that the adults around them. I think we've lost the plot a little bit too in terms of the examples that we need to set for them. I mean,
or not even the example. I mean, you do this with your children, right? Like, what's priority? Like the house needs to be clean, and if we all have Saturday whatever, maybe you're gonna say Saturday morning is when we need to clean the house. We don't want to be in here all day. We don't want to be here the whole weekend. You want everybody to do their piece, get it done, do it properly. Let's decide what are the priorities. And you as a mother are probably going to be setting the priorities, right? Like these are the things that benefit all of us, and we need to get those done first. And then we work through the things that are specific. And we have to do the same for civic duty. We have to go, okay, let's all do our part. Let's get it done. But you probably need a mama or a papa or somebody
that's going to keep the children
reinforcing, saying this is important.
Correct.
Yeah.
If I can give a little joke, Emelina Mari, did you hear Miss Sarah? You need to do your work on Saturdays or Sundays or whenever that is. But I can give you a little joke. Like you said that their minds are wired a little different. My children, like I can tell you, they think that they're not supposed to do work really. Like they should be paid or it's child labor, and they find all of these words to use and, to try and make you feel bad. And, and then you have to take it back to the old school and tell them, well, if I was my mom, like my face would be, on the other side. And, that doesn't necessarily change who they are. But, that's kind of the mindset. And I see it in all of them. They're kind of like,
I should get something out of this. Yeah. But it's a very interesting conversation in human behavior. And we see it in our legislation here a lot. And there's two ways that you can often approach behavior change. And we come to this conversation almost with an implied understanding that civic duty and civic responsibility is not great in our community right now.
No,
and
it's not.
That's right. So I think we have a shared opinion that, or let's say it could certainly be better. We could certainly see
I'll use the words.
We could certainly see
we could
more.
do a lot better.
We could do a lot better. And with that, how you change behavior is tricky. And the work I do with Green VI, that's a lot of it. How do we figure out how to change behavior? And legislation has to think that way too. And most of the legislation we have in our territory is enforcement based, right? I will punish you if you do this, or I will punish this. And most all of us know that that's really not effective. That is not how our population functions, partly because we don't have the tools to actually enforce much of anything. People have a way around everything, right? We have some loophole in every piece of legislation for people to find a way around. And it's actually no different in life, right? We have these enforcement tools parents have, all these kind of things. And they're really difficult to manage. Whereas you look at the other approach, which is to incentivize better behavior. And that's to find ways to motivate people to change, get involved. You're going to say like, make civic responsibility sexy, something that like brings people into it. Yeah. And I'm sure your white outfits are probably a key to this. But, you make it look good. You have people that are influencers. You have leadership that makes civic responsibility and a word I'd like to use, involvement, civic involvement. Make it look what it can be, which is fun. It can be exciting. It can be engaging. It can be like a conversation you would maybe not have had with somebody else. But even incentivization of better behavior isn't always the answer, right? Because then your child comes back and tells you, well, pay me for this, right? So it's alive. I don't know. That was what the new president in the United States was trying to say. Like, democracy is a living thing. This is not just something that, that's what it is, and you show up when you want to show up, and it's like a garden. Did you start planting anything during lockdown? Did you plant anything?
I did not.
All kind of people were planting, which was so good.
Broderick and Stephanie planted for me.
There you go, right? But the thing is, did you talk to people who like planted and then all of a sudden they got about 3 weeks into it and they were like, this hat.
It
thing doesn't stay alive. I didn't realize. I had to think about all this. I thought you just put the seed in the dirt and put some water and then it was going to grow, and I just didn't do it before. And they're like, yes, it can feed you, it can nourish you, it can make you resilient if you grow your own food, it can sequester carbon so your air is going to be cleaner, it's going to save you money because you're not going to buy food, you have it growing yourself, but you actually have to do some work.
Correct. I can tell you, like, I did a lot of that work when I was growing up, so now I don't necessarily want to touch it, but I've learned the lessons.
Yeah.
And I understand the healthy sides of
for it.
yes, because my dad he planted everything.
Right.
He planted everything. He fished. He did all of that.
Right.
So we came up on a very clean diet. So we're gonna take a break, and something you said just before, I'm gonna come back and ask you a magic question that I asked Richard last week and see how your response is on that. We'll be right back.
Hey, Dante. What's up? Well, you look like you're about to pass out.
I think I am. But anyhow,
Chuck, what you doing?
remember last year when I spoke to you over the phone? When I said, well. Anyhow, ever since that moment, I was wanting to take this step further with you.
OMG, Dante!
I want to know if you, Via, would officially have me as your sales rep with a friend
What?
to get live in our February promotions.
Huh?
Get live, get love, and get gifted. Bring a friend to CCT to sign up for a freedom plan. Take a picture with them in the store and post to social media with the hashtag GetLiveCCT. Then put your receipt with your number in the golden basket and wait on a call from Jante. First place gets $500 each. Second place, matching Samsung Galaxy A30s. And third place, $150 shopping vouchers each to one mark.
So are you really saying
Really? And I could bring a friend too?
more the merrier?
Thank you. Welcome back to Cut Deep. We're on Season 3, Episode 5. I say thank you to my sponsors for upholding me each week. I'm here with my friend Sarah Penney, and we're having a wonderful conversation on civic responsibility and civic duty. Before we went to the break, I said that I wanted to ask her, it's off the cuff, but maybe not. Same question I asked Dr. Georges last week. Sarah, I want to ask you, because you were talking about involvement and a growing or moving democracy. Yeah. You want to talk to us about the importance of a participatory democracy. Yeah. And how healthy that actually makes, I like to say us, the territory, because I want to keep it here for us so we can understand, Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, if we want to
our
talk
positions
about, and as a territory, that comes back to the potential, right? Like we have this amazingly small microcosm. You have people from all over the world in our territory, language variations, different demographics. It's rich in so much. And we can make it even more rich by being active participants in our democracy. And there's nothing to be lost in doing that other than maybe, there's nothing. I couldn't even come up with something to be lost. And that is what a democracy is. It's attractive the world over to other nations because it is meant to be. A democracy is meant to be a space where you have a voice as an individual.
And it's important to have that voice. It's important to use it, of course, in the most respectful way.
Right.
Some people say I'm not always.
But if you,
my tone is strong. My tone can be strong sometimes. And sometimes that's what you need. But it is important to participate.
But doesn't a choir have different voices? I mean, this is the kind of thing I would usually equate to it. Like you have to have different voices, and that's when you make the most beautiful music. Like a soloist is phenomenal, right? We love soloists.
I agree.
And there's a space for them. And across the world, you have, we could say, maybe effective dictatorships, right? And it's a choice. It's a choice. If that kind of governing structure is what is attractive to us, to have one person that makes the decisions and the rest of us just go about our business, then we should move toward that. If that's what we as a nation and as a territory feel is right. I often worry that that's actually what we want.
Based on our behavior.
Because of the lack of action. Because we don't talk up. We don't
participate.
Well, we don't hold ourselves accountable.
We don't participate at all until we go to the polls to vote, and we think that's the only thing we can do. But
But we don't
That
even
is
do that.
the least.
I mean, voter turnout rates, we don't even
It's
track.
been going down.
Right. It's anyway, and isn't it better, what was it always, isn't it better to govern yourself, both as an individual and as a territory? And to me, this is starting to get more in the political space.
We have time.
But, I mean, we talk a lot about independence, but how can we become an independent nation if we can't self-govern? And and that is not a dig at elected leadership.
That is
or
what
anything.
it is. Yeah.
That's ourselves. If we as individuals are not healthy, like if we can't eat a healthy diet, if we can't exercise, if we can't manage our own finances, if we don't understand how to pick up a phone and get information or look online and know how to, pay taxes and demand better. Like I have to do better. I like to think I'm a very good citizen, but I should be more active. I should sit down and be frustrated by the process of getting a passport, or frustrated by what you go through to register your child when they're born, because the systems are clunky. But my frustration should not be that I just talk,
Yeah.
that I just talk in my house about being frustrated.
Yeah.
My frustration should be, okay, let me write a letter to somewhere and find out, is there something I can do? Can I help? Do you need feedback?
Yeah.
Because I think it gets forgotten sometimes that just information helps. And if I just write down that I was frustrated by interacting with a department of my government, of our public service.
Have you had to do that?
Yeah, well,
Did it work?
I do it for myself, and I try not to do it in a way that is irritating to said departments, and also try to listen, because we have a lot of phenomenal public servants who are just as frustrated as I am, and they're technically on the inside, and you like to think they could fix it, they should change it, and what they say is, you have more authority than I do. I'm just stuck in here meant to just keep the cogs going, being a cog in the wheel. And whereas if I wrote a letter to an editor of a media house, or if I wrote a letter to, or got a group of people together to all say, we would really like the Inland Revenue Department and the Department of Trade to share information and talk to the heads of those departments or those statutory bodies or anything, they will usually make the time, because we live in this beautiful, small, accessible territory. But if
we don't like to be embarrassed.
But if I don't do it, then why am I upset somebody else didn't?
Right.
That's to me what citizenship is, right? I'm not passing the buck. I'm not, I mean, thank goodness you do what you do, Cindy, because I get to be lazy often, because you're saying the things that need to be said. But there's also, what do we often say? The silent heroes, there are people trying.
Of course, I say that all the time. People would say, sometimes I get frustrated. Of course I get frustrated.
You do? No.
Because sometimes I feel like, is anybody else seeing or looking or experiencing or are people just happy to sit it out because they've done and they're frustrated? But I do appreciate, and I say that just do something. Like you said, a choir is made up of different voices.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it how I can.
Right.
You're going to do it how you can, whether it's writing a letter or calling somebody or just making a loud noise.
Or saying, how can I help? Because this is a ship in this. People have gotten so comfortable being behind a phone or the anonymity. We love this anonymity. I get so vexed with online media houses and all this stupidness everybody will say underneath an article about something sensational when they don't have to say their name.
Correct.
And I know we have the arguments about victimization and people not feeling safe, but sometimes you just have to be courageous. And maybe you need to have a positive experience where courage worked out in your favor and didn't turn into something negative. But take it, go with it and don't be cruel. You said something that really resonates for me about even in a school where you might not have had a direct civics lesson, you were taught respect. and respect and stewardship. 7-Day does this really well, really talking about stewardship and respect for others.
Yeah.
And as soon as you have that fundamental, then you are able to be a good citizen.
Yeah. I believe that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I try to pass that on to my children as well and others around me.
Yes, we know. Most of us
other
are
children.
very, very, very comfortable with the Cindy lessons.
Okay. Can you paint a picture for me? A rounded, nice picture. Clear picture. I shouldn't say nice, clear picture of a good citizen. So when I say rounded, like, what to you is a good citizen?
A good citizen is somebody that actively stays aware, right? Somebody that finds credible sources of information and makes sure to stay informed. Whether that information is about, what my government is doing as they represent me. You can start with the simplicity of I turned 18. I have now the privilege to vote and to elect someone that is going to reflect my voice and my values. And that's what we need to be seeing as why we go to vote, is we're meant to be choosing someone to be our voice. So, we have a big congregation and our church is 30 out of our 200-person congregation, but they're meant to be singing for us. The sound that they're creating reflects all of us. But then once I've turned 18 and I've made sure I'm informed and I understand who I'm voting for and they're elected, I still remain informed. And I find out what's happening, what's changing, what decisions are we making as a territory? Because every time a government makes a decision, that's me making that decision. And if I'm not happy about something, I need to find a way to speak that truth. We have challenges with our complaints commissions and our pieces like this, but we're not powerless.
Yeah.
Right? So a good citizen is someone that's going to say, I'm not powerless. I can be informed. I can vote. I can stay informed. I can make sure that I'm on the lookout for solutions. I don't have to scream. Some people, it's good. Some people scream and yell and get frustrated. That's fine. But I could also show up and say, I have an idea about how we might be able to do something differently. And maybe I'm having that conversation with a minister. Maybe I'm having that conversation with a public sector, person. Maybe I'm having that conversation with a fellow business owner, private sector that needs to see something. And then ultimately I'm paying it forward. I'm not 18
That's a good
anymore.
way to look at it.
I'm not 18 anymore. I understand how to stay informed and find ways to speak my truth. And I need to show others ways they can do that. And if I don't pay it forward, there's no succession plan. There's no legacy.
Correct.
And doing it to me, Sarah Penney, is pointless. It's pointless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. And I think that is a mistake that we have made for quite some time in the BVI, where we get registered to vote, we vote, and then we fell back. And we didn't stay informed. And so I think governments were just allowed to do whatever they wanted.
Or they had no support to do better.
Right. And we're that support. So that's what I'm saying. We fell back. And it goes back to participatory democracy or building a good democracy. And that's how you build that. Being participating, keeping your representatives' foot to the fire.
Right.
But
also supporting them. I think it sometimes goes unseen as to how much pressure and how much courage is needed, even to say, throw my hat in the ring and say, I'm going to run for office.
Yeah.
And the pressure that comes
with that. And get the support after.
And there isn't necessarily a civics class. You know what I mean? This is the thing we want to talk about. Civics in school is so critical because that could be the people running for office one day. They need an opportunity to have understood from early on what that means. And that it's a lot of work. Yeah. And that you have to do the work and you have to show up. But your constituents have to support you and not support you for the sake of benefits, but support you in trying to make our territory the best it can be.
What are your thoughts on social issues in the BVI? Side question.
We're not courageous. We're not courageous in talking about things, and we don't sacrifice very well. We did historically, like there was this like beautiful, Renaissance period, I would say in the 60s, of people actively trying to do something, but we're lazy. We're inherently lazy. I don't think it's specific to the territory, actually. I think it's electronic distancing. I think that COVID was exacerbated the problem. It made us think that we're all together trying to like beat a pandemic, that kind of thing, but it isolated us from one another so that we can ignore problems even more. I mean, the social issues are ridiculous. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little too intense, but we're a small enough place. It's like we talk about sexual abuse and how pervasive that is in our community. And the reality is everybody talks about, oh, that bad person that perpetrated an act of sexual abuse. The thing is that probably 4 people knew it was happening.
Right.
And didn't do anything about it. And you are equally guilty of understanding that something like that happened.
Right.
And not doing something. And it might not be as extreme, but I'm going to come from like a green space. I see somebody who's like, if I know someone that is dumping machine oil on the ground, on the water side, and all that, old machine oil is going then into the sea, and I don't say anything because that's not my problem.
Correct.
I didn't have to call the police for them. I could, say something to them. I could find out if there's a different way they could be doing it, so I'm not just coming and cussing them out for doing something bad, but maybe I'm coming and saying, hey, did you know that you instead could take this to XYZ place? The joke is we don't have that place right now, but we have to be good brothers. Don't like how we have all these masculine words. As a note, I don't understand the forefathers die.
We should not venture there.
Okay.
That was
good citizens. There were both male and female four people. Just for what it's worth. We won't go there.
Yeah. That's a big topic in itself. A very big
I'll
topic
be back.
in itself.
Just to talk about our naming conventions for national holidays.
Before we go to break, I'm going to ask you a big question.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah. Yes, my favorite color is yellow.
Mine too. Do you think our lack of ability to understand and or participate in civic duty and responsibility, or to take that seriously, has brought us to the door of this commission of inquiry?
Is this where we go to break?
Right after your answer.
100%. I mean, I actually say it with a lot of sadness in my heart. The fact that we're at this point is tragic. And if we don't all take a little piece of ownership for the fact that this commission of inquiry was brought on by all of us.
Yeah.
It was brought on by some active players, and it was brought on by those of us that were complacent.
Correct.
And knew things were happening and didn't speak up. For those that did speak up enough to activate a commission of inquiry, I mean, I say applause to you. Thank you for finding a way, because that's where it came from. But also shame on us. Shame on us to have this be
That
where
it
we're
even
at.
had to be there. It had to get to
Absolutely.
this point.
And I don't think I have never seen our nation be unaware of the fact that we are empowered to govern ourselves, I mean, I really think there's a desire that from the UK to not be involved. We're not really a big deal in terms of where they want to spend their time and effort. But if we allow ourselves to have behaved so badly that we come to this point, we have to put on our big pants, own the fact that we were complicit in allowing it to get to this state.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'll take a piece of it too.
Yeah,
Every
we all
citizen has
must.
to.
We all must, because it's interesting. When I came to this third season for Cut Deep, my start off was civic duty and civic responsibility. And I spoke to you, I spoke to Richard, and I said that I wanted to do it, and I wanted to have you guys on. And then this happened. So I would say that this conversation is timely, and it's a very important conversation for us. I know we want to hear the hot stuff every week, but things like this is very important, so that we can understand where we're failing as a territory, where we're failing to self-govern, and so then somebody else may govern us, and how that affects us moving to, greater self-determination or independence. So on that, we're going to take a break and we'll come right back.
Is business slow, cash flow down, hosting an upcoming event? We can help. Advertise with 284 Media and take your business or event to the next level by enhancing your present marketing and messaging strategies. Allow our team of experts to create a personalized ad that sets your business apart from all the rest. This could be your business or event. So, what are you waiting for? Contact our marketing team at 284media@cctbvi.com. Advertising with us works.
Thank you guys for joining us tonight. We're on season 3, episode 5 of Cut Deep. I have Sarah Penney here with me, and we're having, I think, what is a brilliant, very important conversation on civic duty and responsibility, and just what makes a good democracy, and the fact that we should participate more so that we could actually build the territory that we would like to see and feel comfortable living in. Sarah, I have 2 big questions for you. Well, 3. The last one, you can go through that
Okay.
But what does a revised constitution look like to you? What things would need to be added or taken out or adjusted as we move towards a more modern democracy?
More modern democracy. We have to be more inclusive. I think that even just in my, I'm going to say short life, but it's not that short. I am getting older. We have a really, not transient, but, often 75% of our workforce is not statist, is here on a work permit of some kind. And a work permit equals vulnerability. And that shouldn't be okay with us. I have seen negative individuals come here on work permits, and it's been great that you can get rid of them quickly and efficiently because they have no grounds for being here. But it also makes our society weaker when people are not vested. If I have to spend 20 years before I kind of have a stake in the game, we're no stronger for it. And that doesn't mean I'm advocating that every person can just rock up and all of a sudden have the rights and privileges of a BV Islander, belonger, even residency. But we're at there's too far of a gap. And we have to do better at that because there's so much to be gained from being more inclusive and seeing that if someone can invest here, something as simple as not having to feel that every year someone has to give them permission to continue to be here based on something arbitrary. It's fine that you might have to get permission once a year, but let's make it a bit more transparent.
Not such a tedious
and not so
process.
tedious. Let's also try not to derive everything from the private sector. Do you know what I mean? Our revenue generating approaches are antiquated. We have to do better at also the dependence on the public service. I probably am going to say my number one thing I wish we would do is cut down the size of the public service. I think I think it is fair to say a lot of people have a government job and it's very comfortable and it's very safe and it's a guaranteed income.
Yeah.
And it has a benefit that often then times people don't need to rely on other social funding because they have this steady income. It's part of why we don't have big claims for unemployment.
Yeah.
Because people that couldn't otherwise be employed often are employed with government. And so you can see strength in that. You have a lot of your population that is looked after. but they're looked after by tax dollars.
Yeah.
And they're looked after by tax dollars that could be going to the schools that right now don't even have windows that close. And that is not okay with me, which is why I will sit here in a very public forum and say it's not okay with me. There are people working in the public service who are amazing, who should get paid more than they do.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't think we should have, 3,000 people working for maybe mediocre salaries because you're carrying a whole bunch of dead weight behind you.
Right.
It makes no sense. It makes no sense. We also have examples of things that work really well in our Constitution and work really well in our structures, and that for some reason statutory bodies work really well for how we operate here. So let's be active in that. It does require a little bit of a release of power from a few hands to be dispersed, which isn't always attractive, but is necessary.
Absolutely.
So I could go on, but that's probably enough on those answers.
Alrighty. Yeah. Okay. The other question is pretty big as well. What do you see as the BVI's path to more self-determination and eventually independence? Is there a path? Is that a thing? Is it something?
I'm personally, this is me again trying to be a good citizen. You have to speak your truth. You have to be willing to hear reasons why you might be wrong. I don't think, Cindy, I do not believe independence to be in the best interest of our people. I believe we are remarkably fortunate to have some structure that gives confidence in the rest of the world in the stability of our nation. I think we don't make the most of that. I think we fight against it sometimes as teenagers fight against parents, trying to tell them, hey, maybe this would be a better idea. Yes, you know how to feed, dress, clothe, everything yourself. But I've been around a little while. I have a few, ideas. I'm here if you need me. I don't really want to be involved. You're 17 now, but you know better. You know better, or I'm here to help. We often deflect. I think that's been a big part of the independence conversation for a long time, is that if I talk about I don't like them, or they're doing this to me, or it's their fault, or this thing.
Building division.
Then you stop seeing what I'm doing that's not great.
Yeah.
I'd love us to have a conversation where our elected leadership from every term, like not just current leadership, but forever, talks about what they might have done better in the same conversation as they talk about what the UK could have done better.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
I really think that as long as you can come with some humility that we don't have it all right, then I'm much more willing to hear your criticisms of somebody else. So I would say I often don't find that to be a masculine communication approach. Am I allowed to say these things
yes.
too? I think we don't have a balanced voice. I think that the male and the female complement each other. It's why we have two genders in our species. And until we have a balanced voice, this isn't equal. I'm not a big proponent of that word, because we all have different strengths, gender or no gender. And until we can embrace balance, and it comes back to even immigration policies, we all have something to offer. And those leaders you talked about, whether they be community leaders, elected leadership, even employers, you set the culture of your nation, your business, your public service. And until you find humility and a way to include everyone's strengths, you're not going to get anywhere. And you shouldn't become independent.
Yeah.
I suppose I'm not sure I've actually spoken that response out loud. So yeah, I do think it is possible, but I think that we've been given some gift, and whether you want to say it's God or the universe or however, the struggle that the people of this territory have gone through since even pre-slavery, and a journey, to get us here, is not to be forgotten or not talked about, and colonialism is an absolute, worthy conversation piece. But we've been blessed in a way that other Caribbean islands haven't been, with basically a hands-off backup.
And I say that.
Yeah.
I say that we're pretty much self-governing.
Yes, and we have to do better. We have to, we just have to do better, because otherwise you lose that privilege just by neglecting to acknowledge its value, when you don't even have to do anything to keep the value. So, yes, and again, I think if we had more voices in the conversation that made it varied and less linear thinking all the time, which is a real asset, that usually masculine thinking process is very linear and it's got real value, and we had maybe different approaches to thinking, that we would be farther along in this journey. Yeah.
I agree with you. I want to thank you for being here.
Yeah.
But before you go, you have a pretty big, important job or thing that you do.
Job. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
That is very important for the territory.
Yeah.
And if you can just take a few minutes and talk about that, if you can tell our audience just about Green VI.
Yeah, I would love to do that. And thank you, Cindy. It's interesting to hear that. Like, do I call it a job? Do I call it what do I call it? I think that I usually say I have the privilege to serve as Deputy Director for Green VI, because I believe that to be the case. It is a privilege. Not everyone feels or ends up in a position where they can do work that aligns with their values and what they want to see.
Right.
And I hope to inspire others to find those spaces. You might not work for profits, because Green VI is a not-for-profit organization. I do get paid to do what I do based on fundraising and grant writing. But I hope that other individuals, whether you're already well established in a career or you're young coming into this, start to look for ways to spend your hours of your life doing things you believe in. And that can translate to a for-profit business, absolutely. But it's actually citizenship. To me, that's the thing, is that you use your mind to figure out, how can I do work that is worthy of my time, builds my nation while I'm doing it. And so for me, what that means right now is trying to build a greener, cleaner, healthier BVI. And the work that our organization does is specifically trying to find harmonization of the relationship between humankind and the environment. If you go on the website, greenvi.org, you'll see that our logo is a coqui frog, and it's a BVI indigenous coqui frog. Now, some people don't like frogs, and that's fine, but the relevance is that frogs are what's called an indicator species. And so when the frogs start to disappear, you know that there's something wrong in the environment. And whatever it is that's wrong in the environment that's making them disappear is impacting our health. And I think everyone can reflect to times where you can remember the frogs being a lot louder than they are now. They were almost gone after Irma. I don't know if anyone reflects on the noises that we lost and what we got back. But there's specific spaces that relate to this relationship, which is in how we deal with our waste, how we deal with how we generate energy, how we deal with water, and then what we rely on for education and innovation to try to find solutions. And it's really not easy.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Yeah. From a government perspective, legislations.
Yes, and that's the space government should exist in, is to make the right legislation to help people. So
Do we have some on the books?
We don't have what we need,
Okay.
if that's the right answer. And we need citizens to advocate
For
and
those-
demand
For those legislations.
demand a ban on certain plastics that are killing us. They're killing us. That's pretty much full stop. That are killing us.
Yeah.
We need to advocate for what's called a container fee or a container deposit fee. Sometimes people have lived elsewhere in the world, and you take your bottle back and you get back a little bit of money. And that's what it would take to have what's called a funding mechanism to actually pay for a better waste management situation, and quite simply to pay for recycling. So the only way that's going to happen, though, is if citizens demand it.
Okay.
The minister right now, Minister Malone, very passionate about getting a waste act passed, getting the draft waste strategy that there was a consultant 2 years ago that helped to put together a draft to get that approved, to get an act approved that would be very inclusive of all the different waste streams. But we have to raise our voices. I mean, you were instrumental, how many years ago now was that, in a petition to ban styrofoam. It's more relevant than ever. I mean, everybody themselves knows how much takeout food even you as one person even consumes, and because of the pandemic and everything.
And with a lack of the ban or legislation, I mean, you can simply tell people not to take the styrofoam, because at the end of the day, if there isn't a need for it, then you know, so.
But it's courage, right? I would say, I almost feel like 30 years ago, we would have been having we had a very different need for legislation. For whatever reason, we have some people that are super conscientious. They'll walk with their own container to get food to go. They'll make that extra step. But for other people, they need legislation telling them that, actually, styrofoam isn't available. Like, it's not an option for you.
Yeah. And I can tell you a little joke, you know, sometimes we have bottled water here. And it ends up on my table for a guest. And they can tell you, I will be like, okay, so before we set the camera running, we need to remove the bottles, because I would not sleep tonight, because my friend Sarah is going to give me the entire 9 yards. Outside of the fact that I know that is not, you know, what I want to put for you. So we have that little joke. I'm like, no, we can't have the bottles.
I have someone that will call me. Yeah.
You know, just those responsibilities, and the fact that, as I mentioned before, if you don't need it, if there is not a need for it, in the lack of legislation being implemented, if you don't, then...
Yeah, but it's great. I mean, you have enough people. Goes down. Like, we all have enough people in our lives, and everybody hears better a different way, right? Like, some people are going to hear me, like my voice in their head, shaming them for drinking water out of a plastic bottle. The reason I get frustrated by it is because it's not healthy, right? It's like, I love you, and I don't want you to become sick because you're drinking water out of plastic. I want you to be healthy. But you're going to be like, oh, actually, I don't care whether I just don't want her to harass me and talk to me about this. Other people need there to be a law saying that you can't do it. Other people need to know that they can make more money not selling them. You know, people need to see the fiscal impact, or they need to know that, oh, if I stop drinking those Chippity bottles of water, I'm actually probably going to save almost, $4 to $8 a day. And I just never stopped to think about that, right? If I just go back and boil my pot the way I did when I was a child and had drinking water from there, I have more money that I could spend on something else. Wow. And it's our responsibility as individuals to speak to other people. You know, you should start shaming people into no water bottles.
I do. I used to shame my colleagues at the tourist board a lot. With everything green.
With everything green. So, I know. I know.
So thank you, Sarah. That was really great. And that feeds right into our whole conversation of civic responsibility and taking care of the environment and how important that is. Right. I want to thank you, my listening audience, for tuning in with me every week. I'm happy that I have gotten through this particular subject, civic responsibility and duty. Now, if I can get to do my topic on government, and if any of the officials that I've invited I would be so grateful if they would appear on Cut Deep to just speak about government, how that functions. And those invitations went out to the Premier, the governor. At that point, it was Governor Jasper. And I'm going to just assume that the new governor will be on set to talk about his role. The deputy governor was also invited, along with Mrs. Sarah Penney. She was also invited to speak on the judiciary, because there are 3 parts to government. And yes, so that was the extent of the invitations. And I would love to get to that topic, the government and how that works. Thank you again for tuning in each week, and I will see you again next week.